Joining me now is Democratic Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island. He's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, also the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Senator, thank you for joining me. I want to first ask you about this Mueller report and the concerns you may have over the executive privilege opportunity that the White House has. Are you concerned at all that you may not get the opportunity to see this report in its entirety?
I am very much concerned. I believe that the Attorney General has the first review of the report from Director Mueller. And I would be hoping that he would make the report available to Congress and that appropriate sections of the report could be made public. In fact, the House overwhelmingly voted on a bipartisan basis just last week that the report should be fully public. That's the only way you're going to give, I think, confidence that there's been a thorough, full investigation and that the facts have led to appropriate legal conclusions.
So if the Mueller report is heavily redacted by the time it reaches you, do you support calling Mueller before your committee to answer questions about his investigation and his findings?
Well, I think it'd be appropriate after the report's been released to have Director Mueller come before the Congress, the precise committee where he would appear, that could be debated. But again, I think should be available to answer questions that the American public will have, not just members of Congress, but the American public will have. And the irony here is a lot of this drama about the Mueller report could be eliminated immediately if the president would do several simple things. One, testify under oath before Director Mueller, answer all the questions that have been raised, and put those questions to rest, we hope. Release his income tax, which is something that has caused quite a bit of controversy, and other things that he could do immediately and end this long battle over what happened in the 2016 campaign and what happened subsequently to the campaign.
So you're obviously the ranking member on the Armed Services Committee, and you've been trying for days to find out exactly what military construction projects would be cut to pay for the president's border wall. It took some time, but you did finally get the list of projects that could be cut. I mean, what concerns you the most about this proposal from the Trump administration?
Well, getting the list of projects was extremely important. It was no longer sort of an academic sort of transfer of some money from Milcon into the wall. These are specific projects that cover the entire United States, indeed the world. They go to the readiness and training of our forces, the quality of life of the troops and their families. There'll be real trade-offs here, and it'll be to the detriment of our military. All of these projects have been authorized by my committee, appropriated by the Appropriations Committee, based on the request of the Department of Defense that these are critical to our national security. There is not a national security issue at the border. In fact, General O'Shaughnessy, the head of Northern Command, made it very clear there is no military threat coming from Mexico. The military threats are across the globe. The readiness for those threats have to be undertaken at post here in the United States. That's where we should be investing the money. But it's no longer an academic trade-off with some nebulous concept of Milcon money versus the wall. These are specific projects at specific posts all through the United States, and I hope my colleagues pay attention.
Now, Acting Secretary Shanahan was before your committee. He did not have this list when he testified before you last week. Then he went past the deadline to hand it over to you. He's just the acting secretary right now. There's some thought that President Trump would like to keep him in the job permanently, based on not just this, but your entire experience working with him. Do you think he should have the job of Secretary of Defense on a permanent basis?
Well, that is obviously, as you point out, that is the president's initial decision, and then his record will be reviewed by all my colleagues. We were engaged in a very vigorous discussion last week about the list. Finally, and I think through his efforts, the list was produced, not as timely as he suggested initially, but within a reasonable time. Again, this is a very complicated set of issues. I'll wait for the president. He has the first move in this situation, who he proposes, and then we'll evaluate that individual very thoroughly based upon many factors. Their grasp of geopolitics, their ability to, I think very importantly, to give the president wise counsel, to speak truth to power. We don't want someone who's simply going to be a presidential sort of messenger. We want someone who's going to stand up, as Jim Mattis did very much, and say, Mr. President, this situation, I advise against it, or I advise for it. Someone with independent judgment. So we'll be looking for that.
Now, you've been also pretty outspoken about the president's criticism of the late Senator John McCain over the weekend. I mean, how do you think your friend, Senator McCain, would have responded to the way the president has attacked him?
Well, I think he would have taken a substantive course. I think, frankly, in this debate over the powers of the Congress versus the president on the emergency, I have the feeling, I don't know for sure, that he would have lined up with several other Republicans and opposed the president's power grab, because John was someone who understood that the checks and balances, that the role of the Senate particularly, and the importance of the Senate to speak out on public issues. That, we've lost a great voice in this country. He would stand up and he would criticize presidents of both parties if he felt they were taking the wrong course of action. I think he would be very, very strong, not in a personal, petty way, but in a principled way, talking about how this is not the right way to proceed. And he would be particularly, I think, incensed that the military was being used to fund this war. I think he would be adamant in his criticism of that.
All right, Senator Jack Reed, thank you. We talked to you about a number of topics. We appreciate your perspective on all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up, can President Trump